Hi all, I'm Mr. Mendoza, a second grade teacher at Webb Du Bois Charter Academy at Agape Schools. Today I'll be reading a bit of a story or several stories or tales that go along with fairy tales. Cinderella, Yeshan, uh, The Glass Slipper, and a bunch of others that you've heard of. In this, we will read about Ashley. You've never read about that one. That's something new to you. It's new to me. Alice and the Contest, Jane and the Pumpkin, Ella's Wish, and The Portrait. I hope that you enjoy these. This is the first time me actually reading something like this. Enjoy. Ashley. Once there were a wealthy man and a woman who had a daughter they dearly loved named Emile. When Emile was a young girl, her mother became ill. As the woman lay on her deathbed, she told her daughter, I must leave you now, my sweet daughter, but I will always be with you. When I am gone, plant the tree on my grave, and if you're ever in trouble, go to the tree. And remember, in the darkest times, when there is no hope, your kind heart will carry you through. For 10 years, Emile and her father lived contentedly. Their home was cozy and warm, and the forest around them was lush and alive with nature's music and the scents of fruit and flowers. Emile became a clever and compassionate young woman whose generous heart shone through her face like a bright star. But then her father took another wife with two daughters. These young women were proud, selfish, and arrogant, and even though they had beautiful faces, their eyes were cold and their smiles were straight-lipped and mean. Soon after the wedding, Emile's world was transformed. Now a constant chill swept through the house, and her beloved forest grew dry, brown, and empty of birdsong. Then one day, the unthinkable happened. Her father died. Emile was inconsolable in her grief, but her stepmothers and stepsisters' faces wore evil grins. Does that sound familiar to something else? Of course it does. It's another Cinderella story. The next morning, her stepmother burst into Emile's bedroom and shrieked, Get up, you useless creature! Get to the kitchen and start earning your keep! From that moment, Emile's life became an endless string of tedious, wretched chores from sunrise to sunset. At night, her exhausted body had no rest because she had no bed and had to lie on the hard stones of the earth. Because she was always covered with ashes, her stepsister relentlessly taunted her and called her Ashley. Her only moments of happiness came when the shared crumbs from her meager supper with the mice next to the hearth and the now sad, quiet birds on the window sills. Then one day, the king announced a ball to find a princess for his son, the prince. The stepsisters smirked at each other, and the older one said, Ashley, would you like to go to the ball? Oh, yes. May I borrow a dress? Of course not, snapped the younger one. We'd be mortified for anyone to know you're our miserable wretch of a sister. Then they laughed cruelly and left for the ball. Ashley walked out to her mother's grave with her arms around the tree and cried suddenly. The trunk glowed and the tree pulsed as if it had a heart. Ashley heard her mother's voice whispering on the cool wind, Don't despair, my love. The shiny green leaves floated from the tree onto Ashley, covering her filthy rags and turning into a green dress that glittered like emeralds. The birds with whom she shared her meal flew to her with fragrant flowers and dressed her hair. One of her mouse companions ran toward her, and as it drew closer, he turned into a beautiful white stallion with a mane of shimmering gold. Oh, mother, I'm beautiful! You are always beautiful, my love. Your kindness makes you so, not your dress or hair. Now go to the ball. Standing at the top of the stairs of the ballroom, Ashley was transfixed by the soaring music and all the swirling dresses sparkling in the light of hundreds of candles. In the middle of it all was the prince, handsome and laughing with a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Ashley could see her stepsisters trying desperately to get his attention. He politely glanced their way, but had no intent in their faces or their finery. Then he looked up and looked and looked. Then he walked. He climbed the stairs, his eyes never leaving hers. He spoke softly. What's your name? She lifted her chin, smiled, and proudly said, Ashley. You can think about what the ending of that one is. Alice and the contest. Alice stood on the stage while the adoring crowd, cheering and clapping wildly, chanted his name until the adulation filled the auditorium from wall to wall and up to the rafters. Get to class, Alice, said Principal Cranford. Alice awoke from his daydream and remembered with great disappointment that he was not on stage, but standing in the crowded school hallway, staring at the enormous poster that advertised the Middletown High School annual talent contest. He stared at it with longing in his eyes, even as he got bumped and jostled by the throngs of students making their way to class. He wanted to be in that contest, but knew there was no way he could compete. His crippling shyness would never allow it. As soon as he tried to sing in front of even one person, his voice seemed to acquire a mind of its own. It cracked and lurched all over the place, making him sound as his stepmother liked to tease, like a cow and a chicken having a yelling contest. Alice let out a sigh and went to class. Wow. His stepmom, his stepbrother liked to tease him. That's what his stepbrother did to Alice. That must be a pretty mean brother. After school, Alice entered his house and heard the unmistakable sounds of his stepbrother, Grant, holding court. Grant was smart, athletic, and handsome. He was constantly surrounded by a crowd of fans. They all had in common was their unwavering admiration for Grant and their disdain for Alice. As far as they were concerned, Alice could never be tall enough, handsome enough, or cool enough. I bet Alice felt a little tiny or even humbled by his brother. Sad, looks like, sounds like he was really sad when he was around his stepbrother. So everyone admired his stepbrother, but not Alice. It's time for the Middletown High School Talent Contest. To hold court means to get a lot of attention from a group of people because they think you are entertaining. And it was true. Ever since his mother died, when he was 10 years old, Alice felt alone and lonely, as if he would never fit in. When his mother fell ill, they would sing together. It's the two of them. Right before she died, his mother said to him, Alice, you have a good heart and a beautiful soul. Whenever you feel alone, sing our songs and I'll be with you. Avoiding the disapproving glares of Grant and his groupies, Alice went up to his room. Waiting for him there was his cat, Stella. Stella was a stray that he found in their backyard the day after his mother died. Stella had been soaked, filthy, and starved when she first appeared. True to his kind nature, Alice took her in, cleaned and fed her, and held her close. Stella purred, and it was like music to Alice's ears. His stepfather reluctantly let Alice keep the cat. Stella, I want to be in that contest to show everyone that I can do something wonderful. Stella enthusiastically purred and nudged her head under Alice's hand. In Alice's dream that night, Stella's purr became his mother's voice. She said, Alice, you have a beautiful voice that matches your kind heart. Sing, and people will see who you are. When he awoke, Alice felt different. He strode into school that morning and signed up for the contest. All of a sudden, Grant was looming behind him, whispering harshly, What do you think you're doing? You're going to embarrass me in front of the whole school. Alice ignored him. The night of the contest, Alice stood backstage, waiting for his turn to perform. His name was called, and he stepped out into the lights. Grant and his friends started sniggering, and for a brief moment, Alice faltered. He contemplated escape. He started to turn away from the audience. When wait, could it be? Yes, it was Stella, standing backstage. They looked They locked eyes, and again Alice heard his mother's comforting voice telling him to sing with his heart. So that's what he did. He sang the way he had wanted to his entire life. When he was finished, a hush came over the crowd. When they exploded into thunderous applause, they chanted his name, just like in his daydreams. And the principal, Cranford, came out and handed him the trophy. When he went home later that night, flushed with excitement and happiness, Stella was snuggled up in his bed asleep and purring. This was interesting. There was no fairy godmother in this one, just in his dreams. This is more of a modern day than anything else. I like that one. I will read Jane the Pumpkin and Ella's Wish in another video. Wait for it. Hope they enjoyed these first two, and hopefully that you look for the next two.